So now we'll talk about example 2. We're still working with our conditional statements and our original if-then. Remember, if-then is a hypotenuse conclusion, if P then Q. And then we have the converse where you switch the hypotenuse and the conclusion. And now we're going to learn 2 more new vocab words, inverse and contrapositive. In the inverse is simply the conditional with not added to it, so you're negating everything in there, and we'll do an example here. And the contrapositive is the inverse, but you switch around the P and the Q. So, guys.
Okay.
So if I start with my regular if-then, if P then Q, what would be the converse, which we just did?
If Q, then P.
1 second. Then we'll do the inverse. And we'll do the contrapositive. You want to try it?
Sure. You want to go? That doesn't matter. You know what? I don't get what's so funny.
So we can do it. What are we doing with the converse? Let's talk about that. The converse, look at your vocab. We're going to take the hypotenuse and the conclusion and we're going to switch them, right?
Yep.
So these two are being switched, if P then Q. What's going on with the inverse?
The inverse, you're going to negate both. So how would you phrase that? If not P, then not P.
So, but it's you're rephrasing the original statement.
So if not P, not Q.
Yes.
Okay.
In the inverse, you keep the original and you just put not in front of it, or you negate it.
And the contrapositive.
Contrapositive is the inverse, so we're negating the original, and then we're taking and we're switching them.
So if not Q, then not P.
Very good.
And an easier way to remember this is just switch this.
Thanks, Angela.
You're always welcome, Garcia. Are we
So
done yet?
we'll do a couple more examples. So again,
I'll keep going.
well, let's see. Let me. I'll have you come back to us.
As long as I'm coming back up, Ms. Garcia.
So again. So what he wrote, the original statement, if P then Q, exactly what Angela did. The converse, you're switching. If P, if Q then P, you're switching. The inverse, you're negating the original. And the converse.
This is supposed to be fun for them, not boring. So we might as well do this. Now continue.
And the contrapositive, you're just negating the converse. So let's try another example where Brandon can help us out. Right?
Yeah, definitely could help. You know how dirty that floor is?
Okay, so let's try all of this. Let's try this real fast. Same idea, but this time we're gonna write it in if-then form, so the original statement. Then we'll write the converse. We'll write the inverse, the contrapositive of this conditional statement, and then we decide if it's true or false. So, Brandon, why don't you help us out here?
Yep, okay.
So here's our statement. We have Olympics are athletes. So
Alright.
let's first try to write an if-then statement.
If-then, okay.
So Olympics are athletes. Very good. If Olympians think about it. We're talking about Olympians. So if you are an Olympian, then you're what?
There we go. If you're an Olympian, you're an athlete.
Then you're an athlete. So that could be our original. Sometimes you may have to reword these for them to make sense, but that's okay. You can add in. So if you're, right?
And the E, come on, let's not have an English lesson
If you're an Olympian, then you're an athlete, right?
now.
That's okay. What could we write? Right? What would be the converse then?
I'm not dumb.
Go ahead, Ryan. So the converse again, what are we doing with the converse? Switching the
hypothesis and the conclusion.
okay. So this time, if you're an athlete, then you're a Olympian. Or an Olympic athlete, right? What about what would the inverse be?
If you're not an Olympian, then you're not.
Very good. Remember, the inverse, you're taking the original statement and you're just negating it by throwing not in front of it. So, if you're not an Olympian or an Olympic athlete, right? If you're not an Olympic athlete, then if you're not an Olympian, then you're not an athlete. And then the last one would be the contrapositive. And what are we doing to the contrapositive?
Same thing, but you switch the hypothesis.
Very good. So the contrapositive, you could take the converse and just negate it. So contrapositive would be if you're not an athlete, then you're not an Olympian. So that would be example 2. Thank you.